What up? I'm Trepapelka. This is the Braves TomaBlog with the playoff edition of the Braves TomaBlog podcast. I'm reacting to Game 1, and then I'll do a preview of Game 2. I thought I was going to do a podcast after every Braves game because I thought that we were going to be super excited to talk about the Braves postseason games. That sucked. That was atrocious. There's no sugarcoating. That's even if it could be sugarcoated, I would sugarcoat it. But I can't. That was awful, and there's nothing else that can be said about that. All of your worst fears, all of the worst things that could have happened, that pretty much occurred in that game. The only thing that didn't occur in that game, in terms of like a Braves loss bingo, all the ways that the Braves could lose, the only thing that we didn't have was like a Sam Freeman meltdown. You knew going into the game that was a possibility. It wasn't really spoken, but you knew that Mike Foltynewicz could come in and blow it. It's a classic Mike Foltynewicz thing. It's funny, the guy is so talented, but this is the way his career has gone. Is that he's not like Ronald Acuna, he's not like Bryce Wilson or Touki Toussaint, all these guys that jumped in head first into the major leagues and everything was successful. Mike Foltynewicz is as talented as all of them, but it took him 4 years to get to ace level, or at least number one starter level, and apparently the postseason is going to be the same can of worms. He's going to take a while. He's going to take more than one start to come in and be successful for it. What sucks about when Foltynewicz does that is that there are two pitchers on the Braves who do that, who come in and the game's just over quickly. It's Julio Teheran and Mike Foltynewicz. When Julio Teheran gives up 5 runs in the first inning and the game is over, we go, what happened? Well, Julio Teheran was throwing an 86-mile-an-hour fastball. Oh, okay, so like there's nothing that could have been done about that. Julio was going to lose no matter what. When Foltynewicz blows a game early, his stuff is always there. He faced 6 batters. He had 5 strikeouts. He walked 3 guys. He gave up 2 home runs. And on that first, leadoff home run, we kind of knew. It was kind of clear that Foltynewicz was shook. Foltynewicz is one of those guys, he wears his emotions on his sleeve, on his face. The camera was on his face all the time. He was freaking out. He was checking the card. I've never seen a pitcher just carrying a card and like pulling it out in the middle of a game. He was forgetting his signs. He was forgetting his preparation. And he was shook. And he didn't get a call on that batter before Muncy. I think it was Justin Turner that he thought he should have gotten a strikeout on. I thought he was supposed to get a strikeout on, but then he gives up the 3-run homer to Muncy, and it was over. I never thought that he was going to win, and so I don't want to focus too much on Foltynewicz because if you didn't score any runs, it doesn't really matter. The reality of it is that shutout doesn't happen in a vacuum. Hyun-Shin Ryu, who was dominant and outstanding last night, it was just painting. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, but he handled it perfectly. Because, the Braves are a good 7th inning on team. And so when they went down 4-0, I was like, all right, so hopefully you run into like 2 home runs, or like maybe you get 2 on and Kurt Suzuki comes up and hits one, which he did have a chance for, but he didn't get that because Ryu was just on top of things last night. But when the Braves go down 4-0 and the Braves need a comeback, Ryu was the perfect guy to handle that. He was pitching like Tom Glavine last night, just outside of the corners, and the Braves were flailing at it. And the thing is, when that happens, the Braves have a vicious cycle that occurs because the Braves are not good when they're down in the count, and the Braves are an attacking team. Acuna, Ozzie, Camargo, they're all great ahead in the count. And so they attack, and when you're down 4-0, you're not going to get anywhere from walking. Not that Ryu was going to walk anyone. And so they flailed, and they, swung the bats wild, and Ryu knew that, and he pitched to them accordingly, and it all fell into place. And so last night, Braves finished with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits, no walks. The Dodgers had 5, 6, 7, 8 walks. They scored 6 runs on 5 hits. The Braves out-hit the Dodgers last night, but yet the Dodgers score 6 runs because you walked too many guys. I mean, that's everything that you couldn't do, you did in Game 1, and now you have to face Kershaw in Game 2. The reality of the situation, and we talked about it, the Braves are overmatched. You couldn't afford what you did last night. You couldn't afford to make the mistakes that you made last night. I got a comment talking in that podcast, me talking about the Dodgers overmatching the Braves, saying, like, you're talking about the Dodgers like they're the 27 Yankees. And while I will say that I think that the Dodgers are the most talented team left in the National League right now, and they're playing very well, it's not that they're a great team. It's not that they're amazing. I think that they won like 92 games, and so they won 105 last year. They're not an amazing team. What they are, what the kryptonite for the Braves and why they can't beat the Dodgers is that the Dodgers' strengths match our weaknesses. The things that we struggle with, they're good at. So painting outside the corners, getting us to swing at pitches wildly, taking advantage of walks, hitting home runs on pitches that are left over the plate. They have a perfect lineup for it. The double switches, they have a deep rotation and bullpen. They're able to handle, they don't give up big comebacks. They're just perfectly suited to be facing the Braves. And that's why they're such a difficult draw for the Braves to get. It reminds me of back in like 2014 or 2015 when the Hawks had that really good team facing the Cavaliers in the Western or Eastern Conference Finals, and I was just looking for an excuse, looking for a way of saying like, yeah, it's LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love, but the Hawks have this, and yeah, they're overmatched. What competitive advantages do they have? And they couldn't afford to make any mistakes, and they made mistakes. They made errors, and so I mean that team never had a chance. They got swept by the Cavaliers real quick. Now I'm just hoping that that's not the case. Now I'm just hoping that we can at least get a win. I would hate to get swept by the Dodgers, especially in an embarrassing fashion like last night. So I've spent 7 minutes on last night. It feels brief. It feels like I'm just getting started and there's like a ton that I could break into further. But we know what happened last night. Last night's over. Burn the tape. Move on. 9:37. Gonna have to stay up late. We have Game 2, Clayton Kershaw versus Anibal Sanchez. Now, in terms of what you can expect, for one, a completely different lineup because it's Dave Roberts. And so it is still a righty, but he's going to switch up the lineup like he always does, so I doubt that you have Kike Hernandez starting at second base again. You'll probably have Brian Dozier, maybe Chase Utley, I don't know. All types of stuff that you can do. They probably put Bellinger back at first base. Maybe put Matt Kemp in the game. I don't know. They have all types of switches that they can make. In terms of the Braves, probably the same, except you probably take out Tyler Flowers and put Kurt Suzuki back in, because I think Suzuki's been catching Sanchez most of the year. Aside from that, there's not a ton that you can do. You got Culberson still at shortstop. What you need in order to win tonight, because it is Clayton Kershaw, and so, you know, it is possible, but it's probably best not to kid yourself. It'd be great to chase Clayton Kershaw. It would be great to score 4 or 5 runs off of Clayton Kershaw. I wouldn't bet on it. It's, you know, that's not a good chance that you do that. The under-over on the game right now I see is 7. 7 total runs. That sounds pretty accurate to me. What you're going to need in order to do that, hold on. What you're going to need in order to beat Clayton Kershaw is to challenge him and to make him use a lot of his pitches and go deep in counts. Last night you were, trying to come back. You can't be trying to come back. The good news is Anibal Sanchez has been in the moment before. I doubt he's going to lose control of the game. Anibal Sanchez is not going to outduel Clayton Kershaw more than likely. Or if he is going to pitch better than him, it's not going to be 8 shutout innings. You can probably get 6 good innings from Anibal Sanchez tonight. What you have to do against Kershaw, battle, get some walks, get some hits, scatter some hits, maybe a home run or two. Score the runners that you get in scoring position, and then force Dave Roberts to think. Force Dave Roberts to overplay his hand. That's how you beat Clayton Kershaw. That's how the Astros were doing it in the postseason last year, is that Kershaw is never perfect. You got to take advantage of him for all that he's worth, because he's not going to give you a lot, but he will give you a little, because he's not a perfect postseason pitcher. you're not going to, what Hyun-Shin Ryu gave you last night, you're not going to get that from Kershaw. That's the good news, is that Ryu, you thought that you were drawing the easier one in Ryu, you're not. And Kershaw's not going to match what Ryu gave you last night. So the hardest part, that's over, burn the tape. Now you got to go face Clayton Kershaw, which it somehow now seems easier than what you just had to deal with. You shouldn't be coming out of a 4-run deficit in the second inning. Take advantage of that. That's all that you really can do. Force Dave Roberts to overplay his hand and make him think about what variations can I go with, what double switches can I make, who can I go with to relieve Clayton Kershaw, because Dave Roberts does not really trust Clayton Kershaw. Dave Roberts doesn't really trust much of anyone. So push that. Make them overthink it. And I mean, I talked about this before the series started, that if people were going to be, like, if Jock Peterson and, who did I say, like, Kike Hernandez are, like, the best players on the Dodgers, then you have a chance. Well, they probably were the best players on the Dodgers last night, and they still beat you 6-0. This is why they're so difficult to go up against, is that, if Jock Peterson and Kike Hernandez are the best players, they can still win. Now, you got to score some runs. If you don't score any runs, you're not going to win any games. That's obvious. But the reality of the situation is that, unfortunately, you can't just fixate on Peterson or Hernandez or even Muncy. You can't let Machado. You can't let Bellinger. You can't let Justin Turner beat you. Can't give up walks. You can't give up walks. We walked 8 guys last night. You have Anibal Sanchez. I don't think that should be much of a problem for him, but he's only going to go 6 innings at best, maybe 7. You're still going to have to cover at least 3 innings with your bullpen, and you can't give up walks. The Dodgers are too good at covering that. So the best case scenario tonight, I think, is that Kershaw, I think undoubtedly, will cover the first 3 innings. He'll probably go 1, 2, 3 in the first 3 innings. Maybe you scatter a few hits in there. Hopefully you're 0-0 after the first 3 innings. And then second time through the lineup, you start cutting some breaks. You start finding some holes with Kershaw. Draw a walk or 2. Get some bloop hits. Play those runs in. Steal some bases. Get a sac fly. And then maybe get a hit. And maybe you get a 2-0 lead. And they have to come from behind. Anibal Sanchez scatters hits throughout the course of the night, but he doesn't really give anything up. They substitute in order to get some runs, and it doesn't really work, and then you get around the 5th inning or so, and Anibal Sanchez allows 2 on with 1 out, and the pitcher's spot is due up. And so you get the 8th hole out, and there's 2 on, 2 out, and Dave Roberts has to go, do I want to hit Kershaw here, or do I want to pull him and go for the tie? He pulls him, he puts, Matt Kemp in. Matt Kemp strikes out. And now they've used Clayton Kershaw. And so now they have to go to their bullpen, and so they put Alex Wood in on a day's rest, and he wasn't great last night either. And then you take advantage of Alex Wood. Nick Markakis hits a 2-run bomb that makes it 4-0. And now they're in your situation from last night. They're in that situation of trying to overplay their hand, trying to go for the jugular to get back into the game, and you're able to take advantage of that. You're able to put, Max Fried in, then you put Johnny Venters in, and then you bring Vizcaíno in for the close, and you handle them 4-0. You got a couple breaks along the way, but all that really happened is that you battled Kershaw, you battled, Alex Wood in this scenario, and you got away with it. It's sort of what they did last night. It's sort of, that's not horribly different from their win last night. That is possible that could happen tonight. I think that's the best case scenario for what happens in a Game 2 situation. Worst case scenario, I think it's pretty much last night. Except Sanchez isn't going to do that, but if he, allows a home run or 2, or allows them to get on, and then a bases clearing double for Manny Machado, and they score 3 runs, and now we're back in the exact same situation, and Clayton Kershaw now has a lead, and he's able to deal, and he can pitch 8 innings, because you're flailing at his pitches and you have no chance against him. That's the worst case scenario. So thank you guys for listening to this. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Let me know how you guys feel about going into Game 2 and the rest of the series after that. What you're looking for, what you hope to see from them tonight, what you were disappointed by, or maybe encouraged last night. I wasn't encouraged by anything. But let me know your thoughts on Game 1. Let me know your thoughts on Game 2. And just how you're feeling overall. What are your emotions right now as Braves fans? That was your first playoff game in 5 years. And it was a letdown. So I'm interested to hear. Thank you guys for listening. I'm Shep Papelka, and this is the Braves TomaBlog.